Chris Eubank Jr. going back in with Liam Smith. The rematch, it's in Manchester in a fight you can hear live on talkSPORT. And if Eubank wins it, are we talking about a trilogy? Anyway, we're speaking, we being Jim White, Simon Jordan, we're speaking with Spencer Oliver, and alongside Spencer is the BOXXER Chief Executive, Ben Shalom, the man behind this enormous promotion. Ben, good afternoon to you. What are we talking about here? I mean, is the appetite as strong as ever for Saturday night, despite the, if you like, one-sidedness of the first fight?
Yeah, I think so. I think the hardest part of the first fight was convincing people that Liam Smith had a chance. The same people that thought he didn't have a chance the first fight are the ones now saying Chris Eubank Jr. doesn't have a chance. I think Eubank was expected to win in January, not by people within the boxing industry, but by the mainstream, by the public. But the interest in this rivalry, it's almost an unexpected British rivalry, possibly the biggest British rivalry of the year, has rumbled on and on and on. And so many talking points came out of that first fight that are all going to be settled on Saturday night. The interest is way bigger than the first one.
Ben, I was surprised actually at the open workout when we was there yesterday. How many people actually brought into Eubank's winning this fight as well this time, and they were local people as well, the Scousers, the Mancunians as well. They believed that Eubank still had their chance. How did they have that after it was so conclusive, the first one?
I think anyone who's watched Chris throughout his career has always associated him with resilience, with good conditioning, with being impossible to knock down. That all went out the window in January. I think the question is he finished, or was that a freak night? And that's what we'll find out on Saturday. I know his preparation was terrible for that fight. He was out the ring for almost a year. His fight before it, I think, was Liam Williams in Cardiff. And he sort of had so many personal issues and so many weight cuts. And we know all the story with the Conor Benn fight. He then goes into the toughest fight possibly of his career at the Manchester Arena, and it was a disaster for him. But he is the one that's demanded this rematch. And I think that's what gives people a lot of confidence that he knows something went wrong in that fight. That wasn't a Chris Eubank Jr. we've ever seen before. Will we see the Chris Eubank Jr. of old on Saturday night?
Yeah, he said to me yesterday as well that he felt that his back was up against the wall, and that for the first time in his career, he feels the pressure. Do you feel, Ben, a question I want to ask you, for the winner, they go on and box possibly for a world title again, but for the loser, for both of these guys, could it be the end of their careers? I mean, I know we use that all the time, but is that the reality of where they're both at?
Yeah, I think people say this is a must-win for Eubank, but it's also a must-win for Liam Smith. They're at that stage of their career now where they want to headline box office events like this. I wouldn't say it's the end of the career, but whoever loses on Saturday night is going to struggle to top a main event in an event like this again, particularly in the short term. So it's huge, but it's huge for Liam Smith as well. He wants to become a two-time world champion. He wants to become a multi-weight world champion. I feel like he's comfortable now at middleweight. He'll get a lot of confidence from what happened in January. He doesn't just think he can hurt him now. He knows he can hurt him. That makes a huge difference.
Ben, I was going to ask you, mate, of all the fights you've promoted, I'm hearing that the clamour for this, as it gets ever closer, is just quite unprecedented. The demand for it is enormous.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the nastiest rivalry I've ever been involved in. There were ugly scenes, weren't there, in the first fight in January. We've not seen that so far. I think underlying there is that mutual respect. But this is a great advert for British boxing. This is two guys, two clean athletes, two athletes that put everything into their craft, who are going to come in and give it absolutely everything. And when boxing has been going through a tough time, this is one of the biggest adverts that we could possibly deliver.
Well, the rivalry really started, and the heat really started picking up, didn't it? Last time when in the first fight at the press conference, things were said, things got personal, things got heated as well. What are we expecting today at this press conference? You know, because let's make, hate's a strong word, but there's a genuine dislike between these two. What would you expect today, Ben?
I think there is. One thing I would say is I've worked with Chris Eubank Jr. 3 or 4 times now. I've never seen him like this. I've always seen him as the cocky guy, the arrogant guy, the guy that looks like he's not working hard, and he gives off that aura and he sells fights. This time, it's completely different. He's cold-blooded, he's quiet, he's hard to get anything out of, he's completely locked in.
There's a focus around him, right?
There's a focus, and there's a team, and I've never seen the discipline. I've never even heard of Chris Eubank Jr. getting up in the morning, which sounds crazy for an athlete at his level. This is a totally different guy. I expect a tense affair today. I expect Chris Eubank Jr. to keep his head down. but I expect a very, very tense affair because there is just so much on the line. And Eubank's already said, you know, there's more pressure in this fight than he's ever had in his career.
I mean, Simon questioned the punch resistance of Chris Eubank Jr. and has he still got that punch resistance? That is one of the things that leaves a fighter, you know, as they reach father time, if you like. And that did look evident in that last fight. The way that he was getting hurt off jabs, off crosses and everything else, that could be a big factor here as well, couldn't it, Ben?
I think that's the number one question, really, for this fight. Was that a one-off? Was that because of the preparation? Was that because Liam Smith just found the gaps and boxed brilliantly? Or is Chris Eubank Jr. finished? And I think that's a big question. But Eubank, as I say, has taken this fight for a reason. He's surrounded himself with the very, very best strength and conditioning, the very, very best. He's not 25 anymore. He's 33 years old, and he realises that. But as I say, he's taken this fight for a reason. I believe we're going to see a completely different fight. We're going to see the fight that we always thought we would see, that goes possibly the distance, so that's a toe-to-toe war. That's all these guys know.
Ben.
And, yeah, I can't wait.
Ben, on the other side of the table, we've got a different expectation of Liam Smith now. Going into the first fight, we had Eubank Jr. perceived to be the person that was going to win the fight, and Liam Smith, with confidence, because the Smith family travel with confidence, travelled under the radar in terms of expectation. That balance has now changed. There's an expectation that Liam Smith will do the same thing that he did to Chris Eubank Jr. one way or t'other. That at 160, Eubank Jr. can't fight at that weight. What about Liam Smith's disposition and demeanour and outlook and expectation for this fight?
I've never worked with a fighter, I've worked with many fighters as cold-blooded as Liam Smith when it gets to that final week. He almost gets calmer and calmer. He's been over to fight Canelo, he's been a world champion, he's been on the big stage, he loves it, he just loves to fight. Obviously he'll be even more confident this time, but what I would say is he's had a difficult time the past 6 months. He did have the injury. I know he's worked incredibly hard to be fit for September 2nd. It's not been the ideal camp for him, but yeah, of course he's extremely confident, but for him, his dream is to become a two-time world champion, so equally has that pressure.
And he also talked about in the first fight that him struggling to be able to live with himself if he lost to someone like Chris Eubank Jr. And I think that was a big motivation for Liam Smith, you know, the thought of losing to Eubank. And I think that still remains now, you know, he's still got that same feeling inside him. He says, listen, you know, I can't afford a loss to Chris Eubank because me and life, that would be a struggle.